Welcome back to The Price of Business. I am your host, Kevin Price, talking to you about you and your business. I've got Alan Dershowitz on the program. He's been on the show before, and we're delighted to have you on again. I enjoyed having you on, I guess it was about a year ago, and we got you back on now about the case against the Iran deal. How can we stop Iran from getting nukes? You're well known for your legal scholarship. You were, I think, one time the youngest professor in the law department there at Harvard. Isn't that correct?
Well, I was the youngest full professor in the history of Harvard Law School, and boy, is that ancient history. I'm now probably one of the oldest professors on the law school faculty, although I retired about a year ago, so I'm now emeritus. I have this fancy title of Felix Frankfurter Professor of Law Emeritus, but I'm not retired. I'm just retired from teaching. I'm actually writing more than I've ever written. This summer, I'm publishing 2 books this summer and fall. And one of them is the case against the Iran deal. How can we now stop Iran from developing nuclear weapons?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's a very timely topic. I'm glad you're writing. I think you're a great writer, and I'm delighted to have you back on the program. And I think it's interesting to see what's going on with the Iran deal. And I'd like to get your thoughts on this. The reality is that the thing that's prevented Iran from ever developing a nuclear missile has been money. And the cornerstone of this deal is access to money. And so to me, it's almost like a quid pro quo deal towards making sure Iran gets a nuclear missile. Am I missing something here?
You got it exactly right. Money is the source of the nuclear program, the source of terrorism. Oil is their source of money, and we had sanctions on oil. It would be as if a bunch of drug growers were given a fortune of money in exchange for a promise that they wouldn't sell their drugs, but they use their money to produce more drugs and sell them illegally. But, of course, the risks here are much, much greater. Not only that, but can you imagine the National Football League asking football players to self-test, to produce their own urine samples so that they could be tested? Imagine if they were given 24 days to contest it before they had to produce anything. They could obviously clear their bodies. This deal, when it comes to inspection, crosses all of President Obama's own red lines. He said 24/7. He said immediate inspection of the military facilities, and we're not going to be able to inspect. And the worst part of it is we know what their existing facilities are, and those are fully subject to testing. What we don't know is what we don't know. We don't know about their secret facilities that will be discovered, just like we discovered 2 or 3 of them in the past few years. And as soon as a secret military installation is discovered, the 24-day provision kicks in, and they can move anything they want around. They can cover things. They have the technology to fool us, and it just makes no sense at all. And this is an invitation to Iran to cheat. It's also, even if they don't cheat, an invitation for them in 8 years, 10 years, 12 years to begin to develop a nuclear weapon, which they will do.
Yeah, there's no question about it. That is the ultimate objective. And they have already got a history of cheating. They've broken over 20 treaties that we know of. There's nothing about them that would make us think that they would be compliant.
No, in fact, their history is clear. They make deals to break them. And they've broken every deal that they've made over the past many, many years. And we saw what happened when we made a deal like this with North Korea. North Korea has nuclear weapons. They're now developing rockets that are capable of delivering the nuclear weapons. I think we can predict with virtual certainty that Iran will have nuclear weapons within a relatively short period of time. And that's a game changer. I'm quoting the president. I think there's something Congress can still do. The deal is a done deal because the president manipulated it undemocratically through Congress. Instead of requiring 2/3, which treaties require, all he required was 1/3 of one house. And he didn't even go through that because what he did is he got the filibuster.
Yeah.
And when I was growing up, the filibuster was a filthy word, a dirty word. It meant what the racists in the Senate, like Strom Thurmond, used to prevent desegregation of the South. I remember when Strom Thurmond spoke for 24 hours straight, reading from his mother's recipes and things, in order to stop any civil rights laws from being passed. And now the President of the United States is using the filibuster to prevent debate and a vote on the most important foreign policy initiative of of the 21st century. I don't blame him, because every time he speaks in favor of the deal, the numbers go down. The latest Pew poll numbers were down to 21% in favor of the deal. A vast majority of the House against the deal, a majority of the Senate against the deal, and yet he gets to make the deal. But of course the deal can be broken by any new president because it is not the law of the land. And I believe any state can now pass sanctions. New York, California, Texas can have their own sanctions because the Supremacy Clause doesn't operate when the president just has a handshake deal and doesn't have the support of Congress.
So they can individually, whatever financial arrangements that prevented them federally to send money, they can continue to do that on a state level.
Yeah, but I don't think they will, but they can.
Some states will. I can see Greg Abbott of Texas do that.
Well,
I can see him do that in a heartbeat.
A smart thing to do. I do think that what Congress can do, however, is even more powerful. What Congress can do is say, look, we've read the deal, and the deal starts by saying Iran reaffirms that it will never, under any circumstances, develop or acquire nuclear weapons. Now, I think the President and the Secretary of State don't think that's binding. I don't know why. But if Congress says, look, we accept the deal on the condition that that part of it is binding, and we authorize the President now to use whatever force is necessary to make sure that that part of the deal is complied with, then at least we get a deal that on its face is forever, not for 8 years or 10 years or 12 years, as President Obama has spoken out of both sides of his mouth. Sometimes he says it's a long-term deal. Sometimes he says, well, in 10 years, 12 years, 13 years, they're going to be able to be within weeks or months of developing a nuclear bomb. We don't know what it is. We don't know what we don't know. And then there are all the side deals that we don't know about. A group of distinguished scientists just the other day came up with a report saying there's no reason why the deal between atomic energy inspectors and Iran should be kept secret. The American public, the world, the scientific community has a right to see those deals.
Yeah. Well, you know what's interesting about this is that we have decades now of evidence that what we have done has largely worked. Has it worked perfectly? No, but we have largely been able to keep them contained. I don't understand why opponents of this bill aren't articulating that reality.
Well, because we've been sold a bill of goods saying that the deal may be a bad one, and almost everybody I've spoken to thinks the deal is a bad one, including senators who voted for it and congressmen who voted for it. But the alternatives would be worse, because if we don't have a deal, Iran is just months away from developing nuclear weapons. But Iran would never have had the guts to cross that threshold to develop nuclear weapons, because it knew that Israel and the United States would take military action to stop them. But now the United States has taken the military option off the table. So I think we're actually closer to war. I think we're actually closer to Iran developing nuclear weapons as the result of this deal than we were before.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Well, do you think Israel's going to take action before they get to the point of making a bomb? I can't help but think that they will.
I am absolutely certain, without any doubt, that if the option presented to an Israeli prime minister and cabinet is a nuclear-armed Iran that is sworn to destroy Israel, or a very risky military operation to destroy Iran's nuclear capabilities, I have no doubt Israel would take the risky action of destroying it. This is a country that is built on the ashes in some respects of the Holocaust. Of course, Israel was developed before the Holocaust, but many of its citizens are survivors of the death of 6 million Jews. They are not going to sit and watch another 6 million Jews die as the result of a nuclear-armed Iran. Whatever it takes, however many lives it takes, however much heroism it would take, Israel will do whatever it can to prevent Iran from developing nuclear weapons. I know I've been there. I've spoken to generals. I've spoken to the prime minister. And I have no doubt that if that stark choice is presented to them, and one hopes it never is presented to them, the virtue of the sword of Damocles is not that it drops, but that it hangs. And until this deal, it hung over them. Now I think the Iranians don't think that there is a military threat against them.
So are you telling me that the Prime Minister of Israel has told you that that option is on the table?
I've never had that specific conversation with Benjamin Netanyahu, but I've known him for 43 years, And based on everything I know about him, I have no doubt that the military option is on the table.
That's interesting. That is interesting. And I tell you, if I'm sitting where they're sitting, I would be thinking the exact same thing. They literally have to do it. They literally have to do it. And the thing that bothers me the most, to be perfectly honest with you, is that half of the Jewish population, roughly, is in Israel. The other half is right here in the United States.
Yeah.
Once Israel is off the map, you talk about terror against a particular country, that terror will be directed against the United States. It is in our very pragmatic self-interest to back Israel entirely with the same existential attitude that Israel has.
Well, not only that, but remember the Iranians have killed more Americans than they've killed Israelis.
That's right.
They've killed the Marines at the Marine barrack. Hezbollah has killed many, many American citizens. The Iranians provided improvised explosive devices to the Iraqis, which killed hundreds of American troops. So America is the big Satan. Israel is the small Satan. And I would hope that the coming meeting between Netanyahu and Obama in the White House in early November will reaffirm the closeness of the connection between the United States and Israel. Remember that Israel provides the United States much espionage intelligence about Iran, much technological expertise about computer technology, and Iron Dome was developed jointly between Israel and the United States. So Israel is the only country in the Middle East that America can always count on to be an ally. Right. No matter who is in the government in Israel, they will always support the United States. And one hopes that the United States appreciates the importance of that alliance and makes sure that personalities don't interfere with the alliance going forward.
The argument has been among these extreme Islamists is that there would be no Israel if it weren't for the United States. And that's actually probably, at least as a nation, that's probably pretty accurate, isn't it?
Well, it depends on how you look at it. In 1948, Israel was recognized by the United States, but it was also recognized then by the Soviet Union. It fought its revolution against oppression in 48 without American support, and it fought the 67 war without American support.
True.
73, Nixon came in and promised support, but the support came late. So Israel has never asked for a single soldier. Not a single soldier has ever died, American soldiers, defending Israel. Israel itself has lost, during the first war, it lost 1% of its population. And since that time, it's had many, many casualties defending itself. So Israel defends itself. Of course, it relies on the United States for some of the military, F-16s, and other aspects of its Air Force. But the first 25 years of Israel's existence, it got no support from the United States. It got its jet planes from France. It got some of its support in the early War of Independence from Czechoslovakia. So the United States has come in relatively recently in Israel's history, but certainly the support of the United States has been very, very important.
Last time you were on the show, you indicated you were strongly in Hillary Clinton's camp, and I'm curious, based on her position that she supports this deal, has that altered at all?
No, I've spoken to her about the deal. She supports the deal. She was the Secretary of State when negotiations began, but she also supports a very, very strong approach to Iran, maintaining a strong military option on the table and having tough inspection regimes. I don't make decisions on elections until I know who's running against whom. Having watched the Republican debates only strengthened my support for Hillary. But and I've known her for many, many years. She's a friend. But nobody can take my vote for granted. I want to see what all the candidates say when it comes to just before the election. I also love Joe Biden. He's one of the best people I have ever known in my life as a politician. He's just the nicest man in the world. I know several of the Republican candidates. Ted Cruz was my student. I've met Donald Trump. I've met Governor Huckabee. I've met Governor Bush. So I'm hoping that there'll be a strong Republican candidate. I think America benefits when we have strong candidates on both sides.
Alan Dershowitz, well-known, obviously, legal scholar. Very delighted, as always, to have you on the program. Thank you, sir.
Thank you so much. Be well.
You bet. Make sure you check out his book, The Case Against the Iran Deal. How can we stop Iran from getting nukes? Simply put in The Case Against the Iran Deal at Amazon, and Alan Dershowitz would pop up. And his name, of course, is spelled Dershowitz. Always delighted to have him on the program. Brings a lot of thoughtful insight. We don't agree on a lot of things, but the stuff we agree on strongly. So delighted to have him on. When we come back, much more for you on The Price of Business.